All right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope you all are having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shoemake, and this is the Shoemake Take. And today, as you can tell by my undersized t-shirt, we are talking about the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, and what I think they're going to do in 2025. Quick fun fact, this t-shirt, along with a Josh Jacobs t-shirt, is one team of only two other teams I have other apparel other than the Tennessee Titans. If you guys don't know, I am a massive Titans fan. But a couple years ago for my birthday, my mom and I, we went to Las Vegas. I took a tour of Allegiant Stadium, which, by the way, fantastic, absolutely fantastic tour. The stadium is amazing. Obviously, it's state of the art. The tour was incredible. Getting to learn the history of the Raiders. Wow. Just absolutely wow. Great trip. Best part of the entire experience going to Las Vegas. So highly recommend going to do stadium tours, whether it's your favorite team or another team, no matter what sport, if they offer it. Fantastic. But yeah, I own this t-shirt, and then I own a Josh Jacobs one. And I also own a Troy Polamalu jersey. I found in a thrift store for like $8. And I was like, there's no way I'm not copping that. I'm sorry. I know I'm a Titans fan, but man, Troy Polamalu is a one heck of a player. Love that guy. So that's it. That's all the other apparel I own other than Titans. But it is one that I do like. I cherish it, but it is one size too small, as you can tell. You can see my super pale white biceps. I really need to get a tan. But that being said, let's talk about the Raiders, because this is one that I'm really excited to talk about. I actually watched a video recently this week. I think the YouTuber was Tubfrog. Shout out Tubfrog for making an entire 3-hour-long documentary documenting the history of the Raiders from their inception to the present day. Fantastic video. You guys should go check it out. He's a Raiders fan too, so you can really tell his passion during the whole thing. It was awesome. But I'm excited about the Raiders this year. I'm really excited about what they can do. I don't like what they did with their offseason in terms of their philosophy, but they did do good process. I will give them credit for that, and I can get excited for it. So without all the mumbo jumbo, all the rambling aside, let's actually begin talking about the Las Vegas Raiders. If you guys don't know how the 2025 season preview series it works, here's how it works. So we are going to first recap 2024 very quickly. What was their record? What happened in their season? And then we jump into 2025, talk about their offseason. In this case, for the Raiders, we'll look at all the coaches that they brought in of prominence, and then we'll look at their free agents, who they added, who they lost. Then we'll talk about their draft. And then I'll pretty much give you my thoughts on what I think this team is going to look like. Are they going to be good? Are they going to be bad? What are going to be some strengths and weaknesses to look for on this team? And then after that, we're going to look at their schedule. We're going to break it down game by game, look at the most important ones. And then after that, we'll look at some storylines to wrap up the whole thing of why I'm going to be watching the Raiders in 2025. So without further ado, let's actually talk about the Raiders this time around officially. So in 2024, the Raiders went 4-13. They were a lost bunch last year. Their head coach at the time, Antonio Pierce, was not the answer, which was unfortunate considering how many players loved him. And this team was also one that was boring. It was very boring. And they also had a quarterback carousel that was the cherry on top. They brought in Gardner Minshew to compete with Aiden O'Connell. I hated this move. I thought you should stick with Aiden O'Connell. He was young. Either he's going to step up and be your franchise quarterback, or he's not, and then you finish with a high draft pick, in which they were going to finish with a high draft pick, but that last fourth win against Jacksonville late in the year knocked them out of a spot to potentially draft a quarterback. And oddly enough, they were still in a chance to draft a quarterback, all said being done, but they ended up taking Ashton Genty. But that's neither here nor there. Either way, they finished 4-13. They were awful. And here they are with a new head coach and a new era of Raiders football. And that begins with that new head coach going into their offseason, hiring Pete Carroll, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks, and before that, the USC Trojans, and before that, the head coach of the New England Patriots in the late 90s. If you guys didn't know that, pretty fun fact. But that being said, Pete Carroll came out of retirement. He was in the Seahawks front office last year after they hired Mike McDonald to be their new head coach, former Ravens defensive coordinator, and I love the move. I actually really like this move. Pete Carroll is one of my favorite coaches of all time. He is such a player's guy. He loves his players. He loves his team. He loves football. You see what he does around his players, goofing around with them, doing drills with them, coaching them up, and having a blast doing it. He's one of those coaches that you really want to play for. You would run through a wall through that guy 10 times in a row without stopping. No, Pete Carroll's fantastic. I love the idea of bringing in Pete Carroll. Fantastic. I can't say that enough. But in another interesting, little controversial move to me, they brought in general manager John Spytek, formerly of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, this one has Tom Brady written all over it. He became one of the minority owners of the Raiders this offseason, or was it last season? No, it was last season, because last season was also his first year being a color commentator for Fox. But John Spytek with the Bucs, was with Brady for a little bit, so obviously there's a connection. There's definitely influence there. But they fired general manager Tom Telesco, and if you guys don't know about Tom Telesco, he was the GM of the Chargers before going to the Raiders, and Tom Telesco in LA was all about drafting Justin Herbert. He drafted Sean Slater, Derwin James, he drafted numerous all-pros in his time with the Chargers. And then in last year's draft, his only draft for the Raiders, he drafted Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker, Jackson Powers-Johnson. All of them are very promising. Brock Bowers had the greatest rookie season by a tight end of all time. So, I mean, you could say, sure, that was a gimme pick, because obviously Brock Bowers was going to be good, but, I mean, I don't think anybody expected him to be that good. But, I mean, Jackson Powers-Johnson and Trey Tucker are very promising, and I'm expecting them to take prominent roles in year two and really boost and elevate their offense a little bit. And so for him to be fired is unfortunate, but bringing in GM John Spytek and looking what they did with their first draft, it's promising. So we'll have to see, but it's all fresh, it's all new. And the other notable coaching hire that Pete Carroll brought in, he didn't bring in a lot of bring in a lot of coaches. A couple I know off the top of my head. He brought in his two sons to be offensive coaches, so that's interesting. I don't know how good they are. I don't know half history. I didn't realize he had sons that were coaching in the NFL. So someone let me know if they're good hires or not, if you guys think so. But the one that really concerns me is bringing in Chip Kelly, former offensive coordinator of the Ohio State Buckeyes, coming off of a national championship, former head coach of the Eagles and 49ers. This one concerns me a little bit because Chip Kelly does not have a good reputation. For those of you that may not know, for those of you that plenty of you probably know, Chip Kelly, great, innovative mind, absolutely one of the best offensive geniuses in the past 10, 15 years. He was responsible for igniting Oregon, putting them back on the map when Marcus Mariota was there and their offense, fantastic. And then he goes to Philly, ends up doing the same thing, revitalizes their offense, becomes explosive. They go to the playoffs, but then he runs them into the ground, trading away LaShawn McCoy, treating players horribly, not treating them well. He gets fired, and then he inherits a dumpster fire in San Francisco, and then it was never any better once he was there and when he left. So Chip Kelly, while he's a great offensive mind, he's a genius in terms of players and people interaction. Not good at all. All you hear is bad things. And I don't know how well he did at Ohio State. I don't know if he's changed his tune a little bit. Maybe something's changed behind the scenes that I'm not aware of. So if that happens, someone let me know and correct me. But I don't have a good impression of Chip Kelly as a people person. He's not a good people person to me. And so for Pete Carroll, someone who is a massive people person, one of the best people, I guess, like one of the most people-oriented guys in the entire NFL, straight up. To have that guy come in and be your offensive coordinator, it's a little worrisome, but I will keep an open mind. I'm not going to shut the door entirely. But from an offensive standpoint, it is a good move. He is a really good offensive mind, and I'm excited to see what he does with all these young weapons that the Raiders have. So their coaching staff, very solid for the most part. They retained their defensive coordinator, which fine by me. Kept their special teams coordinator, which fine by me. So the big thing is, will Pete Carroll be able to elevate this football team? And it starts or continues with the players that they added. Didn't have a big free agency, but it was filling a bunch of holes. And they added Raheem Mostert, the big one on offense, running back formerly of the Miami Dolphins, had 18 rushing touchdowns a couple years ago, then got hurt this year, then they let him go, and so now he is a backup with the Raiders, going to be a backup behind Ashton Genty. Love the move, veteran player, been around for a long time, good leader, so bringing that guy in, fantastic, I like it. And then the other notable signing here is Alex Kappa, formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't like this move. Alex Kappa's not a good guard in the NFL. He's mid to solid, or no, not even solid. He's average at best, but mostly below average throughout his career, especially in Cincinnati where he was horrible. So I'm not looking forward to that, but he does have a lot of experience. So I guess you need to fill in somewhere, I guess. But on the defensive side, they brought in multiple players. They brought in Lakey Fotu at defensive tackle, linebackers Landon Roberts, Devin White, Jermaine Pratt, all new guys, all on one-year deals. All guys are not fantastic players, but they're all solid to good. Jermaine Pratt's good, Devin White's average to below average, Landon Roberts pretty good. So I like who they added, solid players, and then they brought in Eric Stokes, Lonnie Johnson to be corners, and then Jeremy Chin at safety from Washington. Jeremy Chin's a solid player. Kind of disappointing, though, because after his rookie year, he looked like he was really going to become a really good safety, but he hasn't turned out that way, which is unfortunate. But he's still a solid player. He's a good starter, and for the Raiders, that's going to be good enough. And so this offseason was really capsulated with wanting to compete right away. And I did not like this. I thought the Raiders should have gone into a full-scale rebuild, just tear it down, restart fresh. But I can understand why they're trying so hard to be aggressive to win now despite that. Because you cannot be a rebuilding team when the other three teams in your division, the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Chiefs, are all playoff teams last year. They're all playoff teams. And kind of a little spoiler, I have all three of them making the playoffs again. So you really cannot be a rebuilding football team when the rest of your division is so good and ahead of the curve. It's just not good. It doesn't help you. And quite frankly, it's going to slow your rebuild down in a way. So the Raiders kind of are obligated to try and be as competitive as possible this year. But I think they got in the right people and did the good enough process that they could to make that a reality. Is it going to be perfect? No, unfortunately not. But I can respect what they did to try and fit that mold. And so we'll go off of that. We'll go off of what they did and how much I like their process more than how I feel about their actual offseason plan, which I disagreed with. But looking at their free agency, losses. They lost quarterback Gardner Minshew, brought him in to compete with Aiden O'Connell, got hurt, done for the year halfway through, and then Aiden O'Connell also dealt with his injuries. He's not exactly a healthy quarterback. And then they lost their next guy, Desmond Ridder, who started a game for them against the Atlanta Falcons, coincidentally enough. But quarterback room outside of Aiden O'Connell, completely new. They lost a couple depth players there on the offensive side of the ball, as you can see. And then on the defensive side, the three players that really hurt that they lost, linebacker Robert Spillane, nothing fantastic, but he is a really good football player, will be in the right place at the right time. Fun to watch, one of the leaders of that defense too. To see him go away is sad. And then Nate Hobbs went to Green Bay to be their slot corner. Really like him. He was one of the few bright spots on the Raiders defense last year that was not fantastic all the time. One of the more consistent pieces. So goes to Green Bay. And then Trayvon Moehrig, who really surprised people last year. He had a sneaky good year and left to go to Carolina to play for the Panthers, and which, by the way, that was a really good pickup for them, I think. Still young, I think 25 years old. So they lost some young pieces on their defense, talented players on their defense, but they did their best to add players to fill the holes that they lost. So there's not voids, except for the cornerback position, which we'll talk about here in a little while. But at least for linebacker and safety, they did fill in the holes with adequate players, so it's not a complete dumpster fire. But we get into their draft class, and this one has a lot of intrigue for me. Is it the best one? Not really, but I do like what they did at the top for the most part. Number one in the first round, drafting Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. Should have been the Heisman winner, in my opinion. Sorry, Travis Hunter stands. But drafting Ashton Jeanty in the first round, I get it. He's a blue chip player. He fits the mold of what Pete Carroll wants. It's got his fingerprints all over it. Clearly the best player available at that point. I just worry that not picking a quarterback here was the right way to go. Because if you're going to be a team that wants to try and compete right now and be better now, that means that if it works, you're not going to potentially be in position to get a top quarterback prospect. Which means that by the time Geno Smith is gone and the team is good, if everything works out, you could be like the Indianapolis Colts that have a good team but have no quarterback. And I have them going 4-13 because they have no quarterback. Having no quarterback on a good team is literally going to kill you in the NFL these days. It's not like the Baltimore Ravens in the early 2000s where they literally had all-time great defenses and made the playoffs every single year, but they could never go all the way except for one time because their offense was so bad every single year. So you don't want that. You really do not want that. And so drafting Ashton Jeanty at 6, I understand it. Great player, great prospect. I think he's going to be really good as a rookie. But call me crazy, but probably should have drafted Shedeur Sanders at 6 overall. Let him sit, have great influence with Geno, Pete Carroll, Brady's there who has interacted with him. He's in a good city. I mean, why not? Let him sit for a couple years. Let him develop. Leaves. And now you have your potential franchise quarterback. And so drafting Ashton Jeanty, fine. He's going to help you win now. But is it going to help you win in over 10 years? Maybe not. We'll have to see, though. I loved the pick, though, regardless. Then they took Jack Beck in the second round, former receiver. Out of TCU? Was he out of TCU? I can't remember what receiver or what school he came out of. But he was the MVP of the Reese's Senior Bowl. He caught the game-winning touchdown. Absolutely incredible story. Go look it up. And I like him. He is versatile. He can line up inside. He can line up outside. He's got some good traits. Kind of a reach, if I'm being honest. But I do like the talent. I like the person. So there's enough here I can justify it and I can get behind it. And then you look at Darian Porter in the third round. This one, in my opinion, was a definite reach, but he is a bit of a project. He's got great length. He's like 6'4", 200 pounds, so he's got really good size. And if you can develop him, he could be a really good football player. I mean, those are traits that you don't see in a corner mixed together very often. So I can understand it, but we'll just have to see. And then they drafted Caleb Rogers in the third round, a guard. I like this one. He's going to compete for one of the starting jobs, I think, right away. And they need that. The offensive line needs to take a step forward this year. And drafting Caleb Rogers to bring competition, perfectly fine with me. And then they drafted tackle Charles Grant in the third round. Came out of William and Mary. He is more of a developmental player in his own right, but he should also be competing for one of those tackle spots. Not that they're like open, but he could be competing for swing tackle in his rookie year, but he does have the potential to develop and be a starting tackle in the future. So in the third round, you get 2 guards or 2 offensive linemen for that matter, that do have potential to start for you in the future. I like it. I like the investment into the trenches. Makes perfect sense to me. They also picked him back-to-back. Picks 98 and 99, by the way. And then in the fourth round, they selected my guy. I'm a Tennessee Vols fan as well, if you didn't know that. Tennessee receiver Dante Thornton. Another reach, honestly, in my opinion. Really didn't do all that much for Tennessee throughout the entire year, but he led the FBS in yards per reception, had more long touchdowns than anybody else. I mean, he is an explosive burner, but he is going to take some time to develop. And that being said, though, he could blossom if he does develop. I do like his traits. I like his deep speed. I like his ability to run routes, especially like posts. Obviously, verticals he's good at, but comebackers he's okay at. He fit pretty well in Tennessee's offense. He was their go-to guy when they needed a big play. So I like the talent. Bit of a reach, but I can understand it a little bit. And then they draft 2 defensive tackles back-to-back in the fourth round. Tonka Hemingway and defensive tackle JJ Pegues. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. I'm so sorry. My guy, JJ. But these 2 guys, I don't remember a lot about them when they came out of college. But they do need to invest in their defensive line. They need more depth there. And considering what just happened yesterday or 2 days ago by the time you guys are seeing this video, I think it's even more important that these guys develop and get on the field because Christian Wilkins is now gone, which we'll talk about here in a second because I completely forgot to talk about freaking Christian Wilkins. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But let's continue. Then they also brought in quarterback Tommy Mellott in the 6th round. Fun fact, he took reps at wide receiver at his pro day, so that's where he's probably going to work in the NFL. And then they drafted a true quarterback, Cam Miller, in the 6th round out of North Dakota State. And then Cody Lindenberg in the 7th round, just his depth to develop as a middle linebacker. So that is it for the Raiders offseason until Christian Wilkins. Let's talk about Christian Wilkins for a minute. Let's go off script for a second and talk about it because as I was getting ready to record on Thursday night, I was looking over my script as I always do right before I record, and the news broke. I saw the notification pop up on my tablet, and I was like, huh, the Raiders released Christian Wilkins. That is insane. And apparently, it's because his foot's not fully healed, and to my understanding of the situation, here's what I understand. So, he broke his foot and ended his season last year. This we know. But apparently, this procedure, or like the injury, I should say, takes about 4 to 6 months to heal. And he's still not 100%. The team apparently told him he needs to get another surgery to help it heal. He said, no, I don't want it. And the Raiders were like, well, if you're not going to do that, then we're going to void all your guaranteed money and cut you. And that is what the Raiders did. And now Christian Wilkins has filed a grievance with the NFL Players Association. And so now it's an interesting mess that absolutely just came out of nowhere. I was expecting Christian Wilkins to come back this year and have a bounce back year. I think he's a good player. He wasn't that bad when he was with the Raiders at the beginning of the year anyways. So to see this happen out of nowhere after signing a 4-year, over $100 million deal, wow. Just absolutely wow. What a bust for the Raiders. Absolutely unfortunate. Again, I don't know the full situation, so it's hard to give my opinion 100%. But from what it seems like Christian Wilkins, either he didn't take his rehab seriously or the injury wasn't healing well and he tried to fight through it. I don't really know we don't know the full story quite yet. And right now, a lot of people are obviously siding with the Raiders over Christian Wilkins, as most casual fans do. They love to support the team and not the player and see it from the player's perspective, which I think is very sad. But it is a very interesting situation and a really, really hurtful one for the Raiders, because now their star defensive tackle is gone, and that's going to hurt them a bit. Obviously, he wasn't there a lot last year, but you're expecting him to come back, play better this year, and elevate this defensive line, and they're not going to have that elevation anymore, which stinks. So seeing that, he's gone, cut, I think it was like released by vested veteran or something like that, whatever the designation was called. I don't remember the exact thing. It was in Adam Schefter's first post when he reported it. So unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate that Christian Wilkins is no longer a Raider. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. And I hope he doesn't go to a team that I already made a video about, because if he does, that's gonna stink. But with that being said, enough of the Raiders and Christian Wilkins debacle. Let's continue with our season preview. And with everything that's happened with the Raiders in their offseason, can I say their team has improved? I'm going to say yes. Is it enough for me to move a needle? Not quite. They're not significantly better, but their coaches are a lot better. Pete Carroll is a massive upgrade over Antonio Pierce. I'm sorry. I love the guy. I love Pierce, but Pete Carroll is that guy. And then Chip Kelly to be offensive coordinator, as an offensive coach and offensive mind. Again, I said I love the move. And so I think this Raiders team is going to be better. I think this Raiders team is going to be good this year. I believe that Pete Carroll has enough in him to elevate this team and make it much, much better. And so that's what I'm going to roll with. And it's going to really feel like a breath of fresh air. That's going to be my big takeaway for the Raiders season this year. They're going to be good. They're going to be competitive in games, I think. They're going to get better as the year goes on. And for Raiders fans, it's going to be happy. You guys are going to be really happy. The Raiders have not been good in so long. I'm not even going to count 2016 because they were great, 12-4. Derek Carr broke his leg, and it was all for nothing after that. So, I mean, since the 1990s, the Raiders have not been a good football team at all. They've mostly been kind of dabbling with mid there, and then in the early to mid-2000s, they fell off a cliff. They literally fell off a cliff and became just as bad as like the Browns, the Jets. I mean, the Lions. They were an awful, awful, awful football team for the majority of my lifetime. And so bringing in Pete Carroll, I think this is going to be a fresh air. Like I said, it's going to be really, really fun year for the Raiders. Not going to be pretty, but it's going to be fun. They do have a ways to go, though. Like I said, this roster is not that much more improved where it moves a needle, but it is improved. And the three strengths, I should say, I want to look at. I didn't leave it. Actually, no, I left it off because I didn't really consider it much of a strength, but it should be solid, which is safety. But the two definitive strengths, I think, on this team are quarterback and tight end. Quarterback, Geno Smith, not the best quarterback in the NFL, but brings stability, which for the Raiders, that's going to help them out a lot. I think that alone is going to help them win 5 or 6 games. Geno Smith is still good. He revived his career in Seattle. Really, really fantastic to see what Geno Smith has done. And I'm excited to see what he does with the Raiders, reuniting with Pete Carroll. So, gotta love it. I just realized I didn't even add him in my free agency list. I just realized that I left him out. So, there we go. Geno Smith is a Raider. He's also signed a 3-year, $150 million deal, I think. Something like that. It was a pretty big deal for a veteran. But that being said, he is here now, and I think he's going to bring some much-needed stability for the Raiders at quarterback. And then the other one is tight end. Brock Bowers literally had the best rookie season of all time by a tight end. That's obviously a strength to me, so I don't expect that to be any different. Obviously, is he going to be as good? We'll have to see. I don't know. But I do expect him to still be one of the best tight ends in football in year 2. And then we get to their weaknesses, and here's where things start to get a little bit problematic. Number 1 is still wide receiver for me. Now, I will say wide receiver, out of all these weaknesses, has the upside to, by year's end, be a strength. I think it really could become a strength if things work out. It's just because their number 1 is Jacoby Myers. He's good, but he's not fantastic. And then Trey Tucker going into year 2. You hope he takes a step forward. We'll see. And then your next 2 top receivers are Jack Beck and Dante Thornton. So 2 rookies, a guy going into year 2 that showed some promise. And then Jacoby Myers, who's solid. He's good, but not elite. So that does not excite me a whole lot in terms of what they could be right now. But in the future, if things develop well, this very well could be a strength of this team, and they need it to. Unironically, the Raiders are actually a team that are pretty loaded with young talent at receiver compared to most teams. So I can really get behind it. I can like it. I'm intrigued by it. But right now, I just have it as a weakness, mostly because of the inexperience. That's the big one. A lot of unprovenness and a lot of inexperience, where if it all develops, like I said, it could be turn into a strength very much so. And then this one I had to add to the list after Christian Wilkins got cut. It's defensive line. Max Crosby, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, just got paid this offseason, and at the time was the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Very, very much deserves it. That's not an issue to me. Malcolm Kuntz, they brought him back, and he's okay. He's pretty good. Now, he's not going to make you... He's not going to be a liability, I should say. And then Adam Butler is going to be your defensive tackle 1 now. So he was okay. He was up and down last year, but showed some good flashes. Hoping he steps forward this year. And then Lakey Fotu is now going to be the defensive tackle 2. And then you have 2 defensive tackles that are rookies competing back there. But it's a lot of Max Crosby and a whole lot of average to below average talent. And the Raiders, with some of these other issues, need to have a good defensive line. And I don't know if their pass rush is going to be that good. I'm worried about their run defense. We'll have to see, but this defensive line does not excite me other than Max Crosby, and I think it's going to be a weakness for them this year. And then linebacker, I think, is going to be another weakness. Maybe not. This one, I will say, is probably the least likely to be a weakness starting right away, because the players they got have all been in the league for a while. They all have experience, and so they all should realistically play together kind of well. I mean, Jermaine Pratt is good. Devin White is league average, maybe below average. Landon Roberts, good. So, I mean, bringing in these guys, I like all of them. I like the idea of bringing in all of them. They're all on one-year deals, unfortunately. But, they do have a chance to be good, and if things work out right away, they have this group out of all the weaknesses has the best chance of doing that. But then we got to save the worst for last. Corner, I'm sorry. This is going to be one of the worst cornerback groups in football this year. Number 1 is Eric Stokes. That's not great. And then the 3rd round pick in this year's draft, Darian Porter, who is a project, is going to be the other starter. I'm scared. I am very, very scared about this defense in terms of their floor. Their floor is very low. Their defense, if it can just be average, I think that would be massive for them. I think Pete Carroll's coaching can help them get there. But this secondary is definitely going to be an issue all year long. And unfortunately, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. I don't expect it to be pretty. I don't even think it's going to be passable. It's going to be awful. And I'm not saying that because I hate the players. No, it's just the talent and experience is not there to be confident in that whatsoever. So, yeah, the only true definitive weaknesses on this team are the defensive line and corners. Receiver has a lot of upside, and linebacker definitely has a chance to prove me wrong immediately out of all these weaknesses. But that being said, the Raiders are an interesting bunch. They're a very interesting bunch. And you look at their schedule. Their first 7 games are going to be a challenge, but it is very revealing. And I mean very revealing. Look at week 1. You go on the road to the New England Patriots. This one's a toss-up. This one I think the Raiders could win. They could lose. And the Patriots, I talked about this in the Patriots video 2 videos ago. You should go check it out, along with the rest of my season preview series. But it'll be a tough one. Not losable, though. Then you go, or no, is it at home? No, yeah, the second one, week 2, is at home against the Chargers on Monday Night Football. Divisional rival. The Raiders should be competitive. The Chargers are facing early, but I think the Chargers are better. I think they win this game regardless. And then you go on the road to face the Commanders. That's a loss. Then you stay at home to face the Chicago Bears. That's a winnable football game. I have the Bears in a similar spot as the Raiders this year in terms of record. So it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be fun, and we'll have to see what happens. And then you go on the road to Indianapolis. That's a very much winnable game. I think the Colts suck this year. And then you come back home to host Tennessee Titans. I personally have the Titans winning this game because they're going to be on the road 2 weeks in a row. I think that second road win is going to make them a little bit more acclimated and be more competitive. But then again, still being a very much winnable game for them. And then you host the Chiefs. That's a loss. And you go into the bye. So best case scenario, this team could be, I would say, 4 and 3. 4 and 3 at best case scenario. Worst case scenario, 1 and 6, 2 and 6, or 2 and 5, 1 and 6, 2 and 5. Excuse me. So I mean, a lot of fluctuation. That's why I say it's going to be revealing, because if they start off and get through, if they're 4 and 3 or 3 and 4, I think the Raiders are going to be okay. 2 wins or lower, I'm going to be very concerned. So we'll have to see. But again, challenging, but it will reveal a lot. And I think the Raiders are up to the task for the most part. And then you get some help. You come off the bye week at home to face Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the Jaguars are an improved football team, but they're not going to be world beaters. That's a winnable one. And then on the road against the Broncos on Thursday Night Football, that's a tough one in Denver. I have Denver winning that one. And then you come home on Monday Night Football to face the Cowboys. This game, I think the Raiders are going to win. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be good this year. I do not like their team very much at all. I have more faith in the Raiders being good this year than I do the Cowboys. Give me the Raiders to win that one. And then you're at home to face the Browns. That's another game that's very much winnable. I think the Browns suck this year. So there's another dub that can be 2 in a row right there. And then you go on the road to face the Chargers. At this point, if this team is improved, this one should be more competitive. Do they split? I don't know. I think the Raiders got swept last year by the Chargers. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I'm sorry. I'm not 100% certain about that. But that's a winnable game. Also could be lost, so you could be looking at another sweep. But we'll have to see. And then the Broncos at home, so 2 divisional games back-to-back. Tough, but it is manageable. Then you go on the road to face the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a loss. You go on the road to face Houston. I think that's a loss. Then at home to face the Giants, I think you can win that one. I think at this point in the year, I've said this multiple times about the Giants, that late in the year, I think Jackson Dart's going to be starting games for them. My tune's kind of changed on that a little bit, as Jackson Dart has been drafted by the Giants at this point. And then you close at home against the Chiefs. That's a loss. I am sorry. I don't think the Chiefs are going to lose to the Raiders this year. I don't think they're going to at all. But that being said, their most important games are the Patriots game, Bears, Titans, Jaguars, specifically, and then the divisional games. The divisional games I'm going to put emphasis on for the Raiders because they set out this offseason to be competitive instead of tearing it down and going into a rebuild. So I expect the Raiders to be competitive in these divisional games, even against the Chiefs, which I have them losing both. They need to be in those games. They were in one last year and could have won, but because the Raiders were the Raiders, they've lost that game because they shot themselves in the foot. That being said, I'm going to keep my eye on them these weeks. Week 2, week 7, week 10, week 13, week 14, week 18. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Raiders because if they do not compete very well in these games, I will be calling out the Raiders for not rebuilding. As much as I like what they did this offseason, as much as I like their process, I still thought they should have done a rebuild. And so if it blows up in their face, I'm going to call it out. But that's not here right now. That's much later down the road. So looking at everything we've talked about with the Raiders at this point, I have them finishing 4th in the division. I'm sorry. I just don't see them being any better than the Chargers, Broncos, or Raiders this year. Unfortunately, their roster is just not as good. And so, that being said, they're not making the playoffs, obviously. And my official record prediction for the Raiders, boom, 9-8. I did say that this team was going to be a breath of fresh air, and this is why. I am so confident in Pete Carroll and his ability to elevate this team. I think they're going to win at least 7 games. No, scratch that. I'll even go a little bit more. I'll give you a little bit bold. I'll give you at least 8 wins this year for the Raiders. At least 8. Slowly, I've kind of wavered to be a little bit more towards 8-9 than 9-8. But at this point, I've had my heart set on 9-8 for so long. You know what? I'm going to stick with my gut. I'm going to go with 9-8 and root for the Raiders to be better this year. I believe the NFL is better when the Raiders are good. The Raiders not only have a great history, a long history, they have one heck of an existence in NFL lore. If you guys don't know, if you guys aren't aware, the Raiders, for the longest time, Al Davis was the owner, of course, the founder. No, was he the founder? I don't know. I don't think he was. No, he was not the founder. Scratch that. But him being the owner of the Raiders, they were essentially the outlaws of the NFL. They were one of the biggest, most popular teams in the 70s, in the 80s, late 60s. They were well known. They had a brand. It was the entire thing of being a Raider and wearing Raiders apparel was a fashion statement. It was like a political statement for a lot of people, especially when they moved to LA in the 1980s. And so the Raiders have a big history. They have a storied history of success, being good and being popular. And so the Raiders in today's NFL have not been. They've been the exact opposite. And I think the NFL is better when the Raiders are good. So please let the Raiders be good this year. This is one of the few teams where, like, other than my Tennessee Titans on the side, I'm going to be really rooting for a little bit. I want the Raiders to be good. Learning about their history with the Allegiant Stadium tour and watching Tub Frog's video, shout out again to Tub Frog, on the history of the Raiders, I've really been fascinated by this team. I've been fascinated with how they've gotten to this point. And is that biased? Of course it is. I'm not going to shade away from that. I try to be as objective as I can in my videos. But this one, I'm going to show a little bit of bias and say, hey, look, I'm excited about this team. I like Pete Carroll. I like what the young offensive weapons could develop into. I'm sorry. I'm excited about the Raiders this year. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air, and it's going to be fun to watch at times. So let's look at some of the storylines of why I'm going to be specifically watching the Raiders this year. Number 1 is Ashton Jeanty and the Youngins. The Youngins being, of course, Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers, Dante Thornton, Jacoby Myers is not really old, but he's not young either. But Jack Beck, Trey Tucker, Jackson Powers Johnson. I'm going to be looking at all of these guys as the year goes along because, like I said, they are loaded at young talent at receiver compared to most other teams in their spot. So I think that if they develop, if everyone kind of hits their stride, this could turn into a very good receiver core in a couple years given time. So I'm rooting for that. I love the talent. I'm excited. And this is going to be the big contributor for me for the Raiders being 9-8 is if they can step up and continue to improve as the year goes along, that's going to help them out a lot. But number 2 is the offensive line. The offensive line, obviously, they need to be better. They were not great last year. They were ranked around the 20s, give or take, depending on who you asked. But they need to be better. Colton Miller, solid. I like their guards. Their right tackle is okay. Jackson Powers-Johnson needs to step up in year 2 and be one of those top centers. Is he going to have a Joe Tippmann level of breakout? I hope so. I think he can. I thought Jackson Powers-Johnson should have been a first-round pick. So getting him in the second round, I thought was a steal for me. But we'll have to see what happens. Number 3 is his pass rush because I'm worried about it. And even though I had the pass rush because I had Christian Wilkins into account, where the pass rush just needs to be somewhat decent at least to help these corners. Because if they cannot get a pass rush, this defense is going to be horrible. If they cannot get a pass rush, straight up this defense will be one of the worst in the NFL. So if they cannot get that going, the Raiders are going to be in a lot of blowouts. They're going to be, especially early on, maybe, they're also not going to be able to close out games and really hit the ceiling that I think they could hit. And so, number 4, that being said, along with hitting ceilings, is culture. That's one thing with the Raiders is they have not had a stable culture in Las Vegas for a long period of time at all. And so, bringing in Pete Carroll as the people person that he is, I think he's going to instill a culture in the Raiders that's really going to put life into this team and make them competitive. Even if they do not hit the 9-win record that I'm having them going, or even hit the 8-win record, I'm going to guarantee they at least touch. I will say this, the Raiders are going to be more competitive. They're going to be a tighter-knit team. They're going to be in football games, and I expect them to be at least competitive. I don't think this team is going to be garbage. I don't think it's going to be what it was last year. This is a better football team through and through, and at the very least, I should see that in the Raiders in 2025. So with that being said, that is going to do it for me for this discussion. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and if you've made it this far, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe button. It only takes a couple of seconds. It is free, and if it's free, it's for me. You know what I'm saying? So hit those 2 buttons. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the 2025 regular season. So hit those buttons. Spread the word out. Get people locked in and locked onto the show to continue building the community that we're going here. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I want to hear what you guys have to say about the Raiders and about what I feel about them. Do you think I have them going too high? Do you think I have them going too low? Let me know your thoughts. Lastly, make sure you guys share this video on social media or with all your friends and your family. And also follow me on social media, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff to continue spreading the word and spreading the show. We're trying to build a really good community here. I really would appreciate it if you guys would do that for me. Thank you guys so much. And with that being said, I hope you all sincerely have enjoyed. And as always, I got to go take this shirt off. It is starting to rub off. I don't like this material. It is uncomfortable. And I will see you all next time.